Hey, so you've done this process and that process, and you're a private man, right? Okay. You file this paperwork, so supposedly you're a private man, okay, and you're now living in a private, right? The intent is good, and the concept is very sweet, and it is very possible. But one very simple reality that a lot of us don't like to deal with is the fact that so long you're in the Western world, North America, you really can't be private, or at least you can't be private the way people think or presume or approach things. For instance, one of the most basic things when it comes to right to privacy is the right to just simply be left the fuck alone. When it all comes down to it, that's what everyone wants, right? So you file this paperwork within your email, you put in notices at the bottom saying this is a confidential this, confidential that. You reserve your rights. You post things on social media, all right to reserve this and that. It kind of just, it baffles me the level of cluelessness that exists in people's reality when I see things of that nature. But here's a little bit of a helping hand. Unless you leave the Western world and go to other parts of the world, you really are not going to be private. Is it that, or you really begin to speak up about things of this nature that we're about to entertain here? There are many more venues in life that relates to this and lack of privacy, but there's just one very simple thing that everyone has in common. Even if you don't carry technological devices, every time you walk down the street, travel down the street, take one form of transportation or the other, one way, interstate, or just 2 blocks down, there are cameras that takes images of you every time. If you were to travel past about 2 different stoplights, traffic lights, you would have been on at least 2 cameras, at least. That's besides the ones hidden inside the street lights and all those things. Now, most people in today's world carry phone around. These things that I'm about to say, you don't necessarily have to have a huge technological background to even know how to do it. And if the everyday man and woman can do this, then surely enough, the people that have been groomed specifically from childhood, that works for municipal corporations, to engage in activities relating to technology and information gathering, are quite savvy at what it takes to know much about you. And even you might not know the amount of hair on your asshole, but if you ask them about it, they'll be able to tell you exactly the amount of hair that's growing down there and the frequencies of how often it grows. That's how much they know about you. This might sound a bit discouraging. The intent is not, but more so to inform you and the things you can do to mitigate it. You filing some paperwork does not make you private. It's what you do in your everyday life that determines your privacy. One common thing: phones. For those who carry Apple products, I tip my hat off to you, because you're walking out there in this world of technology ass naked. It's like a very cold winter snowstorm and you're just walking out there naked. If you know much about how technology works, you know that Apple products have a lot of backdoors. This is a tech term that they use. And there's a good reason why they call it a back door. It's a form of orifice, it's a form of opening. For instance, in comparison, the body has orifices, has openings. Most of it is in the head. But then when you go down to the bottom of your body, there's another back door down there. Back doors, when it comes to technology and in comparison to the human body, is the finest and specifically made medium for someone to take their fist and stick it up into that door. Wherever privacy you think you have, that back door is a path for it. Apple product has a whole lot of those, and it does not take a genius to get to it. All it takes is for you to walk past a specific radius, or for someone else to walk past you and they have your whole life in their hands. It really gets that simple. For those who use Android, not much of a difference, but with Android, there's more open source, meaning the programming data of the operating system, which is the stuff that makes basically the computer of it, the programming of it, there's more open source to it, meaning the general public can access the programming language and modify it to their benefit. So at the root, they can stop certain things from occurring, which affects privacy. But how many people actually gives a fuck about this shit enough to actually want to look into it? So for those of us who don't have the time in their hands to learn how programming works, or to learn how to start looking into these things, just be aware of these things. And before I go into this, another thing is VPN. I hear so often people talk of, oh, use a VPN, you can have privacy, use DuckDuckGo, you can have privacy. Alright, not privacy in the sense that you think. VPNs are kind of like emails. For instance, Gmail, very popular. That Gmail is nothing but a database, a network, where someone else owns that server and they're sharecropping it with you. You don't own that domain name, whatever at gmail.com. That's not yours. It belongs to Google. Well, the same thing applies with VPNs. Whatever VPN service provider you're using, whatever service that they've set up, you're just sharecropping it. And guess what? The information of everything you're doing within that VPN, they have it. And municipal enforcements have access to that. All it takes is something called an order request. Just like they do with your phone log, metadata, they call it metadata, is basically the time a call was made, the phone number to whom it was made, how long the phone call was. Well, the same thing can be done with your internet information. They can get all the metadata, who you visited, what website you visited, how long you spent on there, what credit card information you put, what your passwords are, what your email, all of that from A to Z, even if you are using a VPN. So if you don't have your own virtual server that you've created, or you don't have some type of tool that you can attach to your Wi-Fi to prevent all that triangulation, sorry to say this, but I'm not sorry to say this at the same time, you're kind of fooling yourself with these things. Be realistic. But the most common thing is phones. So a lot of people say that they're going to use Telegram, etc., to make phone calls. You're really not protected with that either, because there's an act called CALEA. It is within the Public Law 103-414, 103rd Congress. Interception of digital and other communication. It is codified within the United States Code, the statute within 47 USC subsection 1001 to 1010. It's only 20 pages. It would benefit you for you to take your time, sit down, relax, and read these. It would do you no justice for me to read this for you. But read it in its entirety if you have to read one page a day, and come back to it the second day and read the other page. Do just that, because this is going to benefit you. But overall, here's what I will say. If you domicile anywhere within North America, regardless of whether you live out in the woods, whether you live in the mountains, if you have the slightest amount of technology one way or the other, regardless of whether that technology uses Wi-Fi or not, whatever it is you're doing is not confidential. There are things called mesh networks, whereby even if, for instance, say you have absolutely no Wi-Fi inside your house or wherever you are, if you have anything that sends radio signal, like your alarm clock, or anything that sends radio signal, your walkie-talkie, and there are other things that sends radio signals around you, what mesh network does is it transfers information temporarily from one point to the other until it reaches the destination of whoever wants it. All those ring cameras you see in people's houses, perfect example of mesh networks. When you walk past it, unbeknownst to you, it's taking your image. And there's a database, like a home base, where all those information is being sent to. Those mesh networks of one image that's taken is sent to another slave device. They call it a slave device. The tech word is slave device. It sends it to another slave device, and that slave device sends it. Have you ever seen this image whereby they show dots and then there's links to it, and then they put those links on top of Earth, they superimpose it? That's exactly what mesh network is. That's how it works. So you could be using a satellite phone thinking you're being confidential, but your neighbor has a ring camera about 200 feet away from you. That ring camera's radio wave is picking up the waves of your voice, and it is sending it to other devices around you. People's TV, people's Roku, people's Alexas, people's Google, people's whatever, the stoplight down the street, until it bounces off to the home network, to the home base of whoever it is that wants that information that you've got. And that is without Wi-Fi. The basic difference between Wi-Fi and radio wave is Wi-Fi has a longer range. Bluetooth, just like Wi-Fi and other radio waves, it's just shorter than Wi-Fi. It has a shorter range. Wi-Fi just have longer ranges, meaning it's much more stronger. So even if there's a lack of Wi-Fi, if there's any type of radio waves around, which there always is, they got your ass. So much for being private. And what Kalia, this act, what it does is, in short, in summary, it basically, by default, any networking company, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, Cricket, Boost Mobile, whatever other type of service providers that you have, no matter how affordable it is, no matter how off the grid you think it is, so they all use a form of radio wave one way or another. What this act mainly does is, it by default compels them, beginning this year, 1994, around this time, up until 2007, it gives them a deadline to incorporate a system within their network whereby they involve local law enforcement. Meaning every time you call anybody, domestically or outside of North America, a third way channel is automatically created. And that third way channel goes to your local enforcement. Always, every time. And that is according to the public law and public act that they created just for that. Read it. It will benefit you. So in some cases, they don't even have to do an order request to require the metadata from your phone service providing company. All they have to know is just the general information of where, the area that you're at. Whenever you go around from point A to point B, you would notice these towers around. Yeah, okay, 5G, all that. That is true. Whatever people say about that, that is true. And that also contributes to how strong the waves are going to be picked up by them. Now, of course, there's a side effect, but that's not what we're here to talk about when it comes to physical health and the cells and all that stuff. What we're talking about is privacy. All those towers are exactly the mediums that they're using to listen to you. It's right there in front of you. They don't hide it. It's right there. And there's some that can be built so overtly that it can be put right next to light poles and power lines. It gets that simple. So here are little things that you can do to assist yourself to reduce those. Now, when it comes to service providers, I'm not going to give you any advice on that because I can't. There are alternatives to it, and it's up to you to figure that out. You can. It's out here. Just look into it and you'll find it. But nonetheless, the basic stuff that you can do when it comes to your privacy are things like contact tracing, your body sensor, Wi-Fi scanning, and things like that. Contact tracing basically is anytime you go into any given area, your phone basically sends out beams of radio waves, very, very tiny radio waves, but it sends it out. Basically, what it's doing is it's like the heartbeat of your phone, and every phone has a what's it called? A device fingerprint. It's like its own unique bubble, and it beams that bubble out. And other devices, whether you turn your Wi-Fi on or not, other devices are communicating with it actively all the time. The ways you can turn that off is go into your settings, type in build number, and tap it until it gives you a notice that says developer mode. Then go back into settings and search the word nearby. Turn that off. Go into the search again, type in the word scan. You should find something that says Wi-Fi scanning. Turn that off. So there are different types of Wi-Fi scanning. There's three main types. One is for the purpose of triangulation. It basically collects the MAC address of your network ID. And this is basically another way to track your location. So even if you have your location turned off, your location can still be found by using Wi-Fi scanning. The second type of Wi-Fi scanning is something called probe. It basically does, it's Wi-Fi probe. It basically does the exact same thing as a triangulation, but at a wider range. Much wider range. So the triangulation uses radio waves, and the Wi-Fi probe actually uses Wi-Fi. And the third type is the crowdsource, which every time you try to save some data on your phone and you try to get that free Wi-Fi, use it somewhere. Remember when you scan that Wi-Fi and it shows a list of other Wi-Fi? Well, that's what a crowdsource Wi-Fi is. It allows other devices to be recognized by you, independent of the little beams that's constantly being set out. That one is going to be beamed out regardless of whether you scan Wi-Fi or not. So you can turn these off by simply turning off the Wi-Fi scan. and go into the search again and type in sensor, body sensors. Turn that off too. There's only so much that can be said in a public venue. But the least I can tell you is you merely filing some paperwork is not going to help you from getting your ass kicked if someone really wants to find out about you. And it does not take a genius to do that. Not to be discouraging, but to be realistic with you and to let you know the tools that are out here that can be used against you. You can municipal employees out here and municipal intelligence agencies have tools that can be used to find you out. Even if you use a fake email, fake name, this and that, if one person within your contact list knows your real name and they save that fake email as your real name, they will triangulate you through them. So nonetheless, regarding the phone networks and the fact that all network carriers have been compelled to incorporate the local enforcement agencies in your everyday activities. You're having that nasty phone sex, the phone talk with that girl of yours, setting up that whatever it is you're setting up over the phone. Trust me, someone is hearing that. Whatever it is you're doing over the phone, you think someone cannot hear or you don't want someone to hear about, someone is hearing about it. And even if you're not using a network, there are a phone carrier network, there are mesh networks picking up everything you're saying. So be realistic with yourself when you begin to talk about public and private. Because everything you're doing, so long as you have technology around you, exposes your ass. Just a little food for thought. So while it feels good to talk about public and private and read all these PDFs after PDFs about how United States is a corporation, okay, good. We know that. Get past that. Evolve past that. Now look at the realistic aspect of what's going on around you and apply that. Don't just get stuck in the realm of trying to say no to someone or constantly defending or fending something off or constantly just trying to just have this conversation that just makes you feel good. But at the end of the day, there's no functional reality of it. Practice what you preach by really understanding what's going on around you. This world is moving into a realm of, yeah, we know all these technologies are not really modern as we think of it in Gregorian calendar and all that crap, but the form of technology that is being used in today and the pace that it's moving, it's been set up in a manner where it's going to be way worse than whatever you think you've experienced as to someone railroading you without due process. And unless you understand these basic things, then you really can't even begin to speak up. You'll just be stuck in the fact that, oh, the government is doing this and doing that. They're a corporation. I don't belong to their corporation. There is way more to this shit than just saying, oh, they're a corporation and I don't belong to them. Cool. That's the foundation of it. Now move on and understand how they're engaging in their trust laws and private laws and how they're pulling you into that using technology. Because all this shit is being done. They're trying to convert all of this shit into technology. And they're setting it up in a way whereby whatever affirmative defense you think you're going to have or whatever you think you do, whatever paper you file, they're setting it up so swift and so well that they're going to be about 12 steps ahead of you. So don't get stuck in just one realm of just one thought form. Evolve. You have to, because you have no other choice but to. Because when these things are used against you, when this act right here is used against a lot of people, and the thing about it is they are so swift about it when they use it against people that they don't even make reference to it. The statute. They just mention verbiages from within one clause of this spot, this act right here. Then they make reference to the fact that somebody gave them confidential information and that it's an anonymous tip. So when you do your discoveries, ask them, does it have anything to do with interception of digital or other communications? Or do interrogatories. Just say yes or no, simple. If it does, then know damn well this is it right here. Because they would not want to reveal that they're using this against you, because if they do, then that violates due process. And then there's a direct counter to this right here, and that is within your state laws. Yeah, a lot of people say don't use your state codes and statutes and all that, but your state laws in some ways actually counter some of these federal public laws. The State Public Act and your General Assembly of your state, believe it or not, they specifically create certain state laws that counter certain federal laws. If you know what you're looking for, and this is one of the examples. There's certain privacy, confidential and digital communication laws within your state that does the complete opposite of this, that says the complete and exact opposite of this. And the ones that are very vague and kind of straddle the fence will let you know, wait, look, unless you both consent to the conversation, then nobody can record to it. Or unless you're part of the conversation, and if the party doesn't consent, so long as you're part of the conversation and the other party knows that you're part of the conversation, then you can record it. This one, on the other hand, it railroads all that shit. It says, fuck it, we don't even give a fuck about that. Just look, you're the one providing this man or woman this phone network service. Okay, well, we're going to compel you to add us to that program, part of your contract. We're going to contract with you first before that man or woman contracts with you. And if anybody's already grandfathered into your contracts, well, we're now married with them. Too bad. Why? Well, we're law enforcement agencies. That's what we do. And look, there's a public law within the federal Congress that allows us to do it. So you better start reading your state laws, and you better start using that Constitution to your benefit. And it is most beneficial for you to understand that this is actively being used against you every day.